We begin this evening with oil and growing tensions with Iran, where global oil markets were rattled this weekend following a drone attack on Saudi Arabia's crude oil facilities that forced their production to be cut down by 50%. RT Sarah Montes de Oca is joining me and been following the story all weekend. It has been very much a surprising weekend, but obviously reactions are coming in right now. What's going on with the Saudis?
Well, Scotty, Saudi Arabia has been forced to cut down its oil production by 50% or by 5.7 million barrels per day. This is all following this weekend's drone strikes. The White House reported President Trump spoke with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to offer support and assistance. President Trump authorized releasing oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve if needed to keep the market well supplied. In essence, really to keep gas prices from skyrocketing. Trump took to Twitter where he wrote, based on the attack on Saudi Arabia, which may have an impact on oil prices, I have authorized a release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR, if needed, in a to-be-determined amount sufficient to keep the markets well supplied. He went on to say he has informed the appropriate agencies to expedite approval of oil pipelines that are still in the permitting process, including those in Texas, Louisiana, and Minnesota, and some in northern Wisconsin as well. But some are still waiting on permits while facing court challenges based on land and environmental concerns. Now, SPR's reserves are stored in Texas and Louisiana in coasts in deep underground caves anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 feet below the surface, and they contain 645 million barrels, which is the world's largest backup oil supply. But the U.S. is also highly dependent on Saudi Arabia's oil. In the month of June alone, the U.S. imported 562,000 barrels per day. And this also isn't the first time the U.S. has authorized releasing oil from U.S. strategic petroleum reserves. Back in 1975, President Gerald Ford signed a law that created the United States' first emergency stash of crude oil. This was due to nation's skyrocketing prices and severe oil shortages. Now, only the president can order SPR to be used, and it's only been used 3 times. Let me take you down history. The latest was used in June of 2011. This was under Barack Obama during the Libya global exports, the uncertainty in their oil exports. The U.S. was worried about supply disruptions after the economic crisis from the 2009 recession. The SPR was also used in 2006. This was following the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Katrina that hurt U.S. oil infrastructure along their Gulf Coast. And the first time the SPR was ever used was in 1991. This was when the U.S. attacked Iraq under Operation Desert Storm. Now, Scotty, it remains unclear if the SPR will be used, but even if it is, it wouldn't give immediate relief to these global markets. It's actually a process that could last about 2 weeks, since they do have to drill and be pulled out of storage and then sold into the market to buyers and sellers.
The thing is, Sarah, what makes this move by President Trump so extraordinary is the fact that he's being proactive in a situation that could happen. So at this point, he's planning, but not necessarily having to implement. Thank you so much for following this.
You're welcome.
Now I want to dive into the economic impact of this. Let me turn to John Grace, founder and president of Investors Advantage. Thank you for joining us, John.
Hello, Scotty. How are you?
Okay, well, looking at the volatility of the markets right now, and as we've seen today, it's been an up and down over the weekend following the headlines. How would you advise the president to handle this situation from an economic standpoint?
Well, I wish I had his ear. I wish he would listen to some really bright people that I think he has around him. And I wish he would look beyond what it looks to, like he just seems to think of something and he goes and does it, and then there's no real game plan, or there's no follow through, or there's no real end game, if you will. So it's really hard to advise someone who seems to just listen to his own thinking and then acting on whatever he happens to think and then changing his mind the very next minute.
But that's the thing, John. Right now, he is having, obviously, lots of different people, because we are hearing mixed results coming out of the White House from his staff members. In regards to the oil right now, we're talking about what happened in Saudi Arabia. At the same time, the president's come back and said, guess what? We're reliant on our own. We don't need Middle Eastern oil. What do you think should be the process when we're talking about trying to stabilize a global economy right now should be taken if you did have his ear to listen to?
Well, it would be more about let's put the players at the table, let's have a round table, and let's declare that we all have something in common. The economy on a worldwide basis is slowing. That's better than it stopping altogether, but it's slowing for a host of reasons. They're not all political. And in many cases, it's just looking at the demographics in terms of people slowing down as we age. So if we were to take the time to actually sit these smart people at the table and determine what do you have to offer, what do you have to offer, now how can we do this along the lines of kumbaya the best we can, that would really help a lot of people feel a little more confidence. And right now we just seem to be adept at putting more uncertainty into the equation.
Well, let's try to bring some stabilization to it. Who actually benefits from a higher price of crude oil right now?
Well, it depends, right? It depends on one up is another down. Crude oil certainly impacts all of the transportation industry and much of the auto industry. It often is a precursor in terms of what the stock market does following what oil prices do one way or the other. But as I say, the uncertainty is something that makes it very difficult to discern where do you go from here. And that's why we're suggesting that investors start preparing for some serious declines to keep their assets intact.
Well, let's look at the weekend and this attack that has happened. You know, the Saudis have a very rigorous schedule. Obviously, that's what their whole entire cash cow is oil from the area. What do you think this has done to their distribution schedule of the Saudis and the people that they contribute oil to?
Well, it's certainly disrupted it, and unfortunately, it may be that this is just a sign of more to come. I mean, let's go back to December 7th, 1941, when Japan struck Hawaii, right, Pearl Harbor. That caused the U.S. to enter World War II. Is this a similar event? Only time will tell. Gold's up. That's not a good sign in terms of consistency. 1%. We see oil up about 10% in pricing today. So as long as you've got all of these upheavals going on, it's really, really challenging to figure out, you know, what's the next move.
Well, and here at home, obviously, President Trump says he mentioned gas prices. That's just immediately you think if crude oil goes up, gas prices. But there's other things. What do you think if this is stay on the course that it is right now and the Saudis are not able to get back up to production, even though, like I said, President Trump says we're not dependent on them? Will that have an impact here at home now or even in 90 days? What's the long-term look?
It's hard to really see that. I mean, if it is the case that they can get production back up in the next 3 weeks, that probably would be remarkable. That may be optimistic. It wouldn't surprise me if it were months. They do apparently have sizable reserves that they can put into play. I think that would be helpful. But it's probably going to impact gas prices. This might be a good time for your viewers to go out and get their gas today while prices are cheaper than they probably will be tomorrow or for the next month or two. But prices will probably be high, and we're all going to feel it.
Well, and does it not always make you a little bit cringe when you see that headlines can impact the day-to-day life of even from gas prices to the price of bread, milk, and eggs? Is that not a good thing when there's such an immediate reaction from a breaking news story that you feel it in your pocketbook almost immediately?
Oh, you know it's coming. I mean, it may be less dramatic now than it was maybe 30 years ago, but you know it's coming, and I don't think we're going to miss it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if we can get some sort of stability right now between not only militarily, but obviously economically right now in the oil markets. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.